Hmm? Number 3, we have completed first and second. It's a very big, very big question. And anyway, the summary of all these wordings here, we can point out in this way. We had to live in this world. To live, we had to develop some sort of craving and attachment. Because of this craving, we had to work and earn. But Buddhism says craving is not advisable. Craving creates suffering. Craving is the main cause of all our problems. Then how to clarify these conflicts? Which way is practical and meaningful? This is the question. I do not know whether you have read that booklet that we have printed some times ago. The title of the booklet is It Wrong to Be Ambitious? How many of you have read that booklet? Very few. We have printed 10,000 copies here in KL and again another 10,000 copies in Singapore. I got only one copy, keeping for the next publication. And Indonesia, Taiwan and India, those 3 countries, they have translated into their own languages and printed. I think time has come for us to reprint for another 10,000 copies. Because in that booklet, I have discussed all these issues or problems and misunderstandings and the Buddhist concept very clearly. So if I am going to say something regarding this subject, actually it is a repetition. Not only that, during my Friday talk, I do not know how many times I have touched upon on the same subjects to point out the difference of worldly life and the spiritual way of life. 2 different things. To settle this problem, we have to start from the beginning. So we are leading a worldly life. It is true. We like to experience pleasure, not only peace, but pleasure. That is why this world is called Kama Loka, sensual world. Humans, animals, devas belong to same group, where all those living beings experience their pleasure through their 5 senses and through their mind, 6 senses. Now the trouble is our craving, ambitions, anxieties are very grave. Because of that, we have become slaves to those senses, thinking the main purpose of our life is to entertain. or if not to enjoy our life in worldly way. This is the biggest mistake. Because of that attitude, that mentality, we are facing so many problems, worries, disappointments, unhappiness, conflict, misunderstanding. All these things take place because of that mentality. We can summarize again. All these problems are based on desire and unsatisfactoriness. We have desire, we have craving. When we cannot gain what we wanted, that desire creates unsatisfactoriness, unhappiness, disappointments, in the end frustration. Then we become very moody. We lose our temper. Then we create problems. Now we can understand what is the main cause of all these things that we develop. The belief that we maintain that we can experience peace, satisfaction, happiness in our life by experiencing pleasure or by gaining what we want or by developing our worldly way of life. This is another misunderstanding. Because you cannot single out any place here in this world, including heaven, where living beings experience complete peace and happiness and tranquility in their mind through their worldly material development or sensual pleasure. No place. Now what is happening in this world today? Material development, a spiritual degeneration. There is no any other explanation. If we are facing any problem in any part of the world today, the main cause of this is material development and spiritual degeneration. Let us take those so-called advanced countries. They have everything. They have more than enough things. Their science, technology, educations, way of life are far better than the others. But do you think they are happy? Do you think they are leading a peaceful life? There you can find more and more immoral practices, more and more cruel and cunning and harmful mental attitude and way of life. So it clearly shows worldly pleasures or the material development cannot satisfy human problems. The more you develop your worldly life, the more you develop your craving. The Buddha has given a parable. Aggikkhando samuddocha mahiccho tapi pukkalo. When there is a fire, heap of fire, to stop this, you put more and more firewood. What will happen? Later you can find the flames go higher and higher and higher. The method you adopt to satisfy your craving is exactly like this, providing more and more firewood to stop the fire. You never satisfy, you never gain satisfaction by providing requisite what your craving needs. Then what is the solution? The solution given by the Buddha is not appealing to your mind. And what is that? He says, instead of indulging your senses, if you really want to experience peace and happiness in your mind, what do you have to do? Try to calm, try to reduce, try to minimize. Then you can experience some sort of peace in your mind. But you don't like it. You want to increase your craving, you want to earn more and more, you want to enjoy more and more, thinking you can experience peace. You never experience peace in your life. Why all these people in one country develop discriminations or hostility towards others? Why racial arrogance? Why racial discrimination, religious discrimination? Because of this. Otherwise, all are human beings. Every living being experiences same feeling, pain, happiness, no difference. Then why do we create enormous problems and discriminations to gain more and more for our own sake, for our own benefit, for our own pleasure, by disregarding how others feel? Is it our craving? When you read Visuddhi Magga, Path of Purification, the book written by Venerable Buddha Ghosa, I think at the 7th century, by taking one stanza, sayings of the Buddha, he has written 700 pages explaining. Because this question was put to the Buddha by a Deva. He says, Anto jata, bahi jata, jataya jatitapada. Here in this world, in simple language, without translating the Pali word, in simple language, what he asked. Everywhere, all over the world, in each man's mind, there are so many problems and troubles and difficulties and endless problems. Could you please tell me, what is the main cause of all these problems? This is the question. Then the Buddha gave the answer. So by taking this answer given by the Buddha, Venerable Buddha Ghosa has written 700 pages. Sile patittaya naro sapanyo This is the way how he has started. The Buddha did not say, if you want to settle all your human problems, you must earn more and more. You must enjoy more and more, then you can forget your worries and problems. That is what you need. You need this kind of doctrine. He says, if you want to see the end of your problems, first thing that you have to do is cultivate your way of life, established. You must have firm footing. In simple language, he says, first you must learn how to live as a gentleman. Without doing that, whatever method you adopt, you have to face problems. If you are cunning, if you are selfish, if you are wicked, you are not gentleman. You have no sila, that is called sila. You have no discipline. You have no principles. So without cultivating this, whatever you do, whether it is religion or politics or your family life, household life or your married life, you must have some sort of discipline, good conduct. Then the second point, Chittang Panyan. You have a mind. You must understand the nature of your own mind. You try to learn the nature of the whole universe. You try to learn the nature of the moon and suns and galaxies. But you do not know the nature of your own mind. You do not know how to analyze and understand what are the ingredients in your mind. You do not know why you cannot control your mind. And you also do not know how to cultivate your mind. But this mind is a wonderful mind. Nobody else in this universe who got such a wonderful mind. Human mind is far superior to any other kind of mind that which exists. Even Devas, Brahmas or any other living beings also cannot challenge with human mind. Cannot cultivate their mind up to that maximum level that human beings can do. That is why the Buddha says, you must know the nature of your mind. Then you must know how to handle, how to maintain your mind. When that mind is well disciplined, well trained, of course we use another word for that. We say meditation. Meditation is a sugar-coated word now. Actually it is sugar-coated. Everybody is crazy for meditation, but I really cannot understand whether they practice meditation or not. It has become some sort of modern trend, late fashion, meditation. Because we have met thousands of people who have gone through all these meditation, development. Very hard to find out whether there is any mental development in their mind. They develop something they create their own imagination, thinking they gained something. They develop more pride and some sort of imagination. The Buddha's advice is, in simple language, whether you go to a meditation center or whether you go to jungle or caves or somewhere else, you carry your own mind wherever you go. If you know how to control, how to train, how to handle your mind, you can do this where you stand. A monk in Dhammapada, there's a story, having seen a beautiful mango garden, he thought this is a beautiful place for meditation. Came and asked the Buddha, can I go there and practice meditation? Because that is a beautiful mango garden. The Buddha knew the mentality of this monk. The Buddha did not say yes. He did not encourage this monk to go there and meditate. Then he went on begging and begging and begging, asking his permission. In the end, the Buddha said, okay. He went there, sat down, started to meditate. His mind was wandering all over the world. The mango garden could not control his mind. The whole day he wasted there, come back and reported to the Buddha, I tried my best to control my mind, it seems I cannot concentrate. Then the Buddha gave this advice. It is not necessary for you to go here and there to meditate. Wherever you are, if you know how to concentrate, you will succeed. A place or building, a meditation center cannot meditate for you. You have to meditate, of course. A place, a congenial place is important. Environment, surrounding, to avoid disturbances. If the meditation center is suitable for that purpose, it is advisable to avoid family problems and so many external problems and noises and this and that. Otherwise, a place or a meditation master also cannot meditate for you if your mind is not ready. So, second advice the Buddha has given, you must know how to train your mind. After completion, when you have completed these two, in the end you gain panya. Panya means realization. In that realization, you get some extraordinary mental faculties to analyze what this body is, what this world, what is the nature of pleasure, and what is the purpose of our living, and what we are doing. Why we are like this? Then we go on analyzing by using that extraordinary understanding. After that, that person never maintain any worries, any disappointment, any enmity or jealousy or anger, because he understood. This is the way how Buddha has advised. So what we are trying to do actually, without concentrating or without a study what the Buddha has taught, try to gain happiness through worldly, material development and sensual pleasure. But forever we go on grumbling, crying, accusing, blaming, fighting, quarreling, in the end die as unsatisfied human beings. That is the end of it. So the question is how to live without developing certain cravings or ambition. It is true. You cannot live. You must have some sort of ambitions in your life. Otherwise, life becomes aimless. Ambition is very important. Don't give up your ambition. It depends on the nature of your ambition. What sort of ambitions that you are maintaining in your mind? This is the point. Now let us take the Buddha. He too had ambition. He was aiming at something for him to gain. By working so hard, life after life. It is an ambition. When we analyze the nature of this ambition, we can understand in his ambition there is no selfishness. That ambition he did not develop for his own happiness, for his own salvation, not for his personal benefit, but to gain something, to do better service to others. Now you can see the difference of our ambition and the Buddha's ambition. Now let us analyze this in worldly way. You too have some ambitions. Don't give up hope just because of your religion. Don't lead an idle life, lazy life without doing anything. You must work hard. You must earn something. Don't waste this valuable human life. Still you have not renounced your worldly life, your household life. If you want to maintain this household life, there are so many duties, responsibilities, obligations for you to fulfill. You cannot neglect all your duties because of your religion. You had to support your parent, your wife, your husband, your children. You cannot neglect them because of your religion. You had to fulfill certain duties towards your relatives and friends. You cannot ignore them. Certain duties toward the country and the nations and the government. Certain duties toward your religion. This is the nature of worldly life. That is why you had to work. You had to earn. Now let us find out whether the Buddha has encouraged us to do that. All of you know, he was a prince who really enjoyed his life. He gave up his kingdom, his family, all his worldly entertainments and pleasures. He renounced everything for the sake of gaining his enlightenment, not for his peace or his own happiness, not for his own salvation. But after gaining this enlightenment, he come back and spent 45 years with the public. He did not confine to his room, associated with the public, then advised, pointed out their weaknesses, social ills, discrimination, immorals. Again, train them how to cultivate their way of life. When you study from the very beginning, you can see how he has advised. As husband and wife, you have your duties. Parents and children, you have your duties. Relatives and friends, you have your duties. A religious teacher who has renounced everything, when he wanted to teach you, he has cultivated your way of life from the very beginning. So he did not advise you to give up everything at once and run away. Then, duties towards your country and the government, also in the Buddha's teaching. I think you can remember a well-known saying in Indian philosophy. It was better to repeat again and again and again. Sometimes you cannot remember. Very practical way of life in ancient Indian philosophy. That is not only for Indians, for all human beings. Saisavebhyasta vidyana yauvane visayeshina vardhake munivrittina yogenante tanutyaja. These are the 4 stages, period in our life. So this philosophy says, when we are young, our duty is to study. We should not get involved with various other activities and politics and many other things, not even in love affairs at that time. Should not develop your romantic way of life during at that time you disturb your education. Concentrate more on your study. When you have completed your studies, now you have attained already your teenage stage. Then time has come for you to yauvana. Yauvana means youth. Visayeshina, to experience the worldly life. here, find out a suitable partner. A religion never goes against that. Even Buddhism also never say it is bad. A suitable partner, suitable job, earn something by adapting a decent or reasonable, respectable method, but not by adapting cunning and crooked and wicked method. Enjoy your life. So it is not a sin. You really can enjoy your life. So the belief that some people maintain when they are going to practice Buddhism, that they cannot dance, they cannot sing, they cannot enjoy their life, they cannot do this and that. There is no such restriction in the Buddha's teaching. Yes, there is, after a certain period. After that renunciation, if not certain period that you are going to observe precept for 1 day or 3-4 days or 1 week or few months, during that period, better to keep away from all these things to maintain peace of mind. Otherwise, it is not a sin. How can you prove that it is a sin if you go there and dance? If you go and sing? If you enjoy your life without disturbing or harming others? Can you say according to Buddhism it is a sin? No. Then why should we renounce? That is important. There is a time limit for everything. Don't go beyond that. You go on enjoying your life. In the process of your enjoyment, you may come across, experience a lot of problems and conflicts and difficulties. It is true. Husband and wife, how many times a day they fight? Parents and children, regarding their income, lot of problems. Then, somehow or the other, you could manage to carry on this way of life up to middle age. After middle age, you maintain some sort of maturity in your mind through your trials and errors and mistake and experience. Because you have seen the world, experienced. Sometimes you may think that all your enjoyments are nothing but a dream. A dream. In the end, there is nothing to remain. At night time when you sleep, you experience wonderful dreams. You really enjoy. The morning when you get up, there is nothing. So most of our enjoyment during our youth, when we attain certain age, middle age, at that time we feel actually all these enjoyments are nothing but dreams. By realizing this, then try to change your mental attitude not to become slaves to your senses anymore. That is the turning point. In simple language, time has come for you to minimize, to reduce. Then you can go on reducing so many things, because they are not necessities for your living. You can live very well without any of those enjoyments, entertainments and extraordinary pleasure. By considering this very carefully, the Buddha has prescribed only 4 things for those who have renounced. They are necessities: food, clothing, medicine, shelter, a house. If we can gain these 4 things, our food, our clothing, our medicine, our shelter, we can live without facing any problems. That is what Mahatma Gandhi in India has said. Beautiful saying. He said, here in this world, actually we have more than enough things for our needs, but not for our craving. You can understand the deep meaning of it. Then why do we fight? And why do we disturb others? If we can gain our necessities without fighting and disturbing others, because they are available. But we are fighting for some extraordinary gadgets, pleasure, enjoyment. They are not important for our living. So there is no limit. If we are trying to supply more and more requisite to satisfy our craving. Now let us take these countries. The country is developing. Nice roads, beautiful houses, nice motor cars, beautiful dress, good food, good job, good income, good salaries. Enjoy your life. This is called development. Again, when you compare how people lived about 100 years ago in this country, you think your way of life is very, very advanced. Your education, your scientific knowledge, your techniques, very advanced. On the other hand, when you observe how many degrees that you have developed, your jealousy, your craving, your unrest, your unhappiness, uncertainty, disappointment. Because of these development. That is why I told you at the beginning, we face all these problems today because of material development, a spiritual degeneration. Our honesty, sincerity, kindness, compassion, understanding, contentment, patience, tolerance, all these things are going down and down and down and down and down. We are going on increasing our craving and desire and jealousy and anger and enmity and discrimination increasing. Do you think we can have a peaceful life? Here we are asking this question. We must have craving. We must live in this world. Therefore, how can we live without desire, without craving, without earning? The Buddha has never prohibited, never advised you not to have all these things. His advice is, when you develop some sort of ambition, you should not pollute this ambition with your selfishness. Simple example. Buddhism never says it is bad. Very good. Can you point out where the Buddha has said that it is wrong? No. If you want to become multi-millionaires, the Buddha will come and bless you. He never says you are bad. But he observed the method you have adapted to become a rich man. So many people who try to be multi-millionaires and enjoy their life and experiencing wonderful life in Pudu jail now. The Buddha observed only that angle. How they try to experience, become rich. That is what the Buddha says wrong, that attitude. That ambition is wrong. You want to become, say, very rich people. Then you can make up your mind. If I gain enough income, now I am struggling for my survival to maintain my family. If I can gain enough, I can contribute something for those poor people. I can help those who are suffering. Then that ambition is not wrong. Not for your own benefit. You want to become doctors. It is an ambition. Buddhism never says you should not have this ambition. You can develop your mind by thinking, yes, I want to become a doctor. If I become a doctor, I can save thousands and thousands of lives. I can serve others. No doubt I get an income. I divert my mind. I dedicate my life by using my knowledge to serve others. That ambition is not bad. Excellent. You must have income for your living. It is not wrong. You want to become teachers or lecturers or professors or nurses. Again you can divert your mind by learning this technique. I can contribute a lot to educate others, to support others, to release others' sufferings and problems, although I get an income for my living. Who can say that ambition is wrong? If not, I like to have some sort of power and authority or political power. If your motive is to do some service to your countrymen without abusing your authority, without misusing your political power, if you can maintain peace, justice and order without discriminating says that ambition is wrong. Do you know Mahatma Gandhi? They are great people. Forever people remember them. Wherever he goes, people offer him thousands and millions of rupees for his expenses. But he always travelled in third class by train. One day somebody asked, people offer you so much money, why can't you travel in first class? You are a great man in this country. Why do you travel in third class? He said, I travel in third class because there is no fourth class. This is the way how they have contributed and served the country. People regard them as God. Now let us take Gandhi and Nehru family. Nehru became the Prime Minister. After his death, his daughter became Prime Minister. Idea is to respect that old man, due credit and honor to that Nehru family. After her death, her son became the Prime Minister. People like it. Still they respect that family because they have established a wonderful name. The Buddha has said this, Rupang jirati machanang namagotang najirati. After our death, our rupa, our physical body, or the element of this body all disappear. Completely disappear. But Namagottang Nadirati, the name or the influence that we have created during our lifetime never die. Najirati, never decay, never die. Now we are talking about the Buddha or Gandhi or Socrates or Jesus. Why do we talk about them? Here you can see they did not die. Their physical bodies are no more. Whole mankind never forget them. That is what the Buddha said. Name never dies. So, understanding people, great people, dedicate their life without adapting selfishness and cunningness. But today, how many honest politicians you can find all over the world? How many honest religious people you can find in this world? Among those religious leaders, lot of selfishness and cunningness you can find in them. That is why we are facing all these problems. So can we settle this problem by developing our desire, our craving and ambitions? Because that selfishness completely pollutes everything. Then, by knowing the nature of this ambition, what we have to do? Worldly life, worldly obligations, worldly problems are natural. You must understand this. There are many human problems and worldly problems that you cannot overcome. You cannot stop by praying to any god. praying to any Buddha, because they are natural. When such problems come and disturb us, the religious knowledge is important to challenge. That is what the Buddha wanted to teach us. When such natural problems come to us, how to make up our mind not to create disappointment, frustration, to understand. This is the nature of the world where we live. This is the nature of this physical body that we maintain. This is the nature of worldly condition which exists in any part of the universe. All these living beings and living things are subject to these changes, impermanency and uncertainty. So I am also facing this natural problem. This is the Buddha's technique. Not by developing your craving, not by enjoying, but by realizing this nature. Therefore, it is not against this religion for you to develop your ambition, your craving, your anxieties, your desire to gain certain things by adapting a reasonable method. The method is the important thing. Then you can utilize, you can make use of that you gain for the betterment of others. Not only for your own benefit, not only for your own freedom and salvation. If the Buddha wanted to enjoy, experience Nibbanic bliss, he should have done this long, long ago, before suffering life after life to gain his enlightenment. Because this enlightenment is not the important point to attain nirvana. To experience Nibbanic bliss, we need only complete purity, perfection, that's all. When there are no more mental impurities, mental defilements, if the mind is completely pure, then life becomes perfect. This is the only quality that we need for us to experience Nibbanic bliss. That is for our own salvation. But some others take so much of trouble and pain to gain that enlightenment, to show the correct path for others also to find out their salvation, because they are in the dark. We are in the dark. Still we could not understand what the Buddha taught. We maintain our own imagination. Then, regarding your worldly way of life, if you are not ready to renounce, renunciation does not mean changing your clothing and shaving your head. You renounce only these two things. But all the dirty ideas, selfishness, craving, attachment are there in your mind. There is no renunciation. Without changing your clothing, without shaving your head also, you can renounce many things. You can renounce your bad habits which disturb others. Not necessary to change your clothing. You can renounce your selfish ideas, cunning method you adapt to gain something. It is a real renunciation. You can reduce so many extra pleasure that you experience. Minimize and lead a normal life. It is a renunciation. And without collecting, accumulating, dumping everything as your property, you must maintain some sort of contentment in your mind. This is enough for me or for our family. Why do we want to collect so much? Why not we allow others also to enjoy their life? Is it not a renunciation? Then again, go further. You are very stingy. You don't like to contribute anything towards the benefit of others. By realizing this attitude is wrong, you renounce that stinginess. It is renunciation. You are very hot-tempered, always disturb others. By realizing, oh, why should I disturb others showing my temper? I must control it. I must renounce my anger. It is a renunciation. You are very proud. Your egoism is very strong. You always fight to justify that you are right. But one day, you have to think that attitude is wrong. You cannot say always you are right. You also make mistake. Admit. Then reduce that pride, prestige, egoism. Then become more humble. Is it not a renunciation? This is the way systematically we have to cultivate our life. By doing this, what do you gain in the end? Then what do you want? What are you fighting for every day? You are fighting, you are struggling day and night to experience your freedom, your peace, your happiness. What else? You must have freedom. You must have peace. Then you need happiness. But do you think you can gain freedom, peace, and happiness by developing your craving and ambitions and anxieties? Never, never. The more you reduce your craving, the more you maintain your contentment, then you experience freedom in your life, peace, in the end, happiness. When you study so many previous birth stories of the Buddha, on many occasions, he was born in royal families. He was ruling the country as a king, not only in one lifetime. after ruling the country for a certain period, and the maturity appeared or indicates something, such as grey hair. You see, grey hair, oh, that means maturity. Indicates something. Time has come for me to renounce. Then hand over his kingdom, either to his son or brother. Then he become a free man. After becoming a free man, he says, what a wonderful freedom I am experiencing now. I never had in my life. And the fear I had in my mind is no more. Because nobody want to kill me, nobody want to kidnap me, nobody want to rob me, because I am no more a king. Now I don't want to have any bodyguard. I can go anywhere without any bodyguard. I have full freedom. I get my enough food, shelter, clothing, what I need. He experienced freedom, peace, happiness. But another person from the very beginning have been struggling, fighting, quarreling, killing, disturbing, destroying others to gain power and authority and become rich. After gaining all these things, day and night shivering. Life is uncertain. People are aiming at him. So many bodyguards, so many motor cars behind, front, so many motor cars behind, and so many others on both sides to watch. Even then, cannot escape. Time bomb. Day and night they are boiling, shivering with fear and suspicion. Again, anger, jealousy, cruelty that they develop in their mind. This is the nature of worldly life. Because of their craving, they never give up hope. They cling to that. At the risk of their life, they cling to that. But there are well-known people, understanding politicians, leaders, rulers and the kings. Even at the risk of their life, they never change their principles, their justice. They never show their discrimination. They never ill-treat their subjects. Buddha has pointed out, the rulers must have 10 principles. So, now you can understand the different type of craving, ambition, and how we go against the Buddha's teaching and how we can cope up and adjust our way of life without violating the basic principles of the Buddha's teaching to lead a worldly life. By knowing your difficulties, your problems, Buddha has limited your duties, your principles, your precepts. Because it is impossible for you to observe all these principles to be more religious, more pure, by leading a worldly life or family life. You cannot do any business or any work by leading a pure religious life. And if you want to do that, then your duty is to renounce. keep away. After that, when you renounce these things, there is no reason for you to develop your craving. No craving at all. If there is no craving, then you can maintain contentment, satisfaction. If there is contentment in your mind, jealousy never appear in your mind. Now you have jealousy. If there is no jealousy in your mind, anger never appears. You never lose your temper. If there is no anger in your mind, you never disturb another person. You never kill another person. See how development can take place one after the other when once we have done this renunciation. So if you are not ready to do that, then you must know your limit. Your limited precept, 5 precepts. Your limited religious obligations and duties. If you go beyond that as a layman or householder, your way of life becomes nuisance to the public and to your family members. Don't try to be too religious at home. If your wife and husband and children all are religious just like you, okay, no harm. Otherwise, your way of life becomes nuisance to others. You must know how to cope up. Don't go to extreme. So if you want to be independent religious man, then renounce. After that, no one can say anything. If you want to walk in this way, you hand two legs up and head in this way, you can walk using your 2 hands also. Nobody to say people regard you as a religious man. At home, don't try to be like that. Nuisance. If you want to become vegetarians, very good. But don't create unnecessary troubles and nuisance to your family members. If they can cooperate and agree, well and good. And if you don't like music, they say it is against religion, we don't like music. And your children curse at you because they like music. If you don't like music, then renounce and go away. And don't force those poor children not to enjoy music. At that age, music is very important to them. So religion also we had to practice according to our age. Children, youth, adult and elderly people and all those who are one step here, the other step here. And for them all these things are not important. Music and dance, these things are not important to them. So, I think I have not completed the 4 periods of life according to the Indian philosophy. After middle age, I have turned towards somewhere else. So when you attain that middle age, that is the time for you to make use of your intelligence, because maturity is there. Because you have seen the world, you have experienced, you had to face so many problems, you enjoyed worldly life, your knowledge is very, very advanced. Now you can balance very easily. And don't become slaves to your senses after that. Concentrate more on religion, philosophy, psychology, science, and important subject to improve more and more. At that time you can understand things. Now when I was studying as a young monk, I could not understand things. When we are learning, we never understand. Learning means maintain memory. After reading or listening, that ideas we keep in the mind. That is called learning. But after certain age, the maturity and understanding and experience are developed. Then we can analyze and understand, this is the meaning of this. Earlier we have never realized. So that time you had to maintain more human dignity. You had to uphold more principles. And you had to lead a respectable life, not a childish life at that age. Concentrate more on deep meaning of life and religion and way of life. Then come to the last day. Having seen all these things, gone through all these channels, by considering about your fate, your next existence. This is not the first life. Death is not the end of our life. Continuity. Life process never stops suddenly. Then we have to prepare for that. If we have not done that earlier, at least at the last few years, devote your time only for meditation, chanting, and observing precepts. Of course, certain precepts automatically you observe at that age. No need to observe by using effort. And reduce your craving. That is the best advice that I would like to give you. If you have craving toward the property that you have accumulated, reduce this craving before you die. If you die with strong craving toward your property, you become a ghost in that house again. And you disturb others also, don't allow others to make use of it because of jealousy. The thing that you have earned by working so hard, turn the other way around, and you become very unfortunate living being because of your property. We must die with free mind. Mind must be free. Then, at the last moment, confusion never take place in the mind, because no attachment, no craving. Mind is free. Then we can die. Even after our death also we can see a smiling face. In the dead body also we can see a smiling face. I think enough. So the next Friday, what is your question? Oh, about the next Buddha. This existing world system and the next Buddha, also very interesting subject. Whether this earth exists, remain until next Buddha appear or not. And the world cycle and the Buddhas appear and disappear. So also interesting subject, next Friday. Right. Sir. ආකාසට්ඨා ච බුම්මට්ඨා දේවා නාග මහිද්దికා පුඤ්ඤන්තං අනුමෝදිත්වා චිරං රක්ඛන්තු ලෝක සාසනං දේවෝ වස්සතු කාලේන සස්ස සම්පත්ති හේතුච පීතෝ භවතු ලෝකෝ ච රාජා භවතු ධම්මිකෝ ඉදං ඥාතිනං හෝතු සුඛිතා හොන්තු ඥාතයෝ ඉමිනා පුඤ්ඤ කම්මේන මාමේ බාල සමාගමෝ සතං සමාගමෝ හෝතු යාව නිබ්බානපත්තියා